And welcome to the Security Guy and CIA Spy PodBroadcst. I am Robert Siciliano, and this is
Peter Warmka from sunny Orlando. How are you doing up there?
in
Robert.
Boston. Doing good. It's getting warmer, and I am sorry. 12 days into COVID.
What? Are you serious?
I finally got it. Yes, I had not had it since. Everybody in my house got it, and I got it on a recent business trip. And the cough thing is still, in my chest. But I didn't get like really sick. I got like a couple of days of aches and pains, no fever actually. And then, tested, and here we go. But yeah, from traveling, I got it probably, the last gig that I was on, flying and all that fun stuff. And but I tested negative a couple 3 days ago, but I still have the after effects of it. But
that's a good reminder, though. That's a good reminder. We don't hear much about it anymore, but there are still quite a few cases out there. Maybe not quite as, thankfully, not as severe as when they first came out. But these are things that you can easily pick up. And you're right. I think out of all the things that can happen where you might pick this up is travel, getting on airplanes.
Yeah. And whether or not my previous vaccinations, because I got vaccinated, whether or not my previous vaccinations helped me, I don't know. Whether it's the same strain or not, I'm glad I did. But I guess it's the flu, and it wasn't awful, but I survived it.
Well, I'm glad you're back. I'm glad you're back. You're doing better. So how are we doing here? What's going on?
So, man, we got all kinds of fun stuff to talk about. Like, for example, Gizmodo talks about stop using your face or thumb to unlock your phone. So this is kind of interesting. So the laws surrounding Fifth Amendment protections, and I'm often asked by my audiences, should we use our thumbprint? Should we use our face to unlock our phones? Can it get hacked is generally the concern, and I say, look, you're going to have a hard time, a bad guy's going to have a hard time hacking Apple to get access to your thumbprint or face recognition. And then the other question is, can somebody just use a photo of me to unlock my phone and so on? And the answer is generally no, that facial recognition requires 3D, and so a face on a photo is not necessarily going to bypass, facial recognition on your phone. But there's a concern in here. The laws surrounding Fifth Amendment protections and biometric passwords are still undecided, so just turn it off. So it says, last week, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals in California released a ruling that concluded state highway police were acting lawfully when they forcibly unlocked a suspect's phone using their fingerprint. Interesting. You probably didn't hear about it. The case didn't get a lot of coverage, especially because the courts weren't given a blanket green light for every cop to shove your thumb to your screen during an arrest. But it's another toll of the warning bell that reminds you to not trust biometrics to keep your phone's sensitive info private. In many cases, especially if you think you might interact with the police at a protest, for example, you should seriously consider turning off biometrics on your phone entirely. So, somebody who's deceased or knocked unconscious, their phone could be opened with, their face and or their fingerprint, one of 10. So that is certainly a concern, whereas your passcode cannot open up your phone. Peter, what are your thoughts?
Well, it's interesting. I think I'm not going to be, me personally, concerned that I'm going to have the police opening my phone because I've been arrested. Hopefully not. But that being said, I think, probably most of us, we use the combination of having the passcode or we're using the biometrics, and it is a convenient feature. My concern probably more so there's still individuals out there that once they unlock their phone, they probably leave it open the entire day and don't have the timing out of the feature, right? I think there's still people that, I think you need to really be careful and have that phone time out within, whether it's 2, 3, 4 minutes and not let it go the entire day. That's probably a bigger risk to people.
So my phone times out after 60 seconds, 1 minute. And I use facial recognition to unlock my phone. And I'm going to continue to using facial recognition to unlock my phone too. Certainly, the password, 4, 6, 8 characters, whatever it might be, digits, is definitely more secure. It's something that you know versus something that you are,
Right.
and so something that you know can't be taken from you if you are unconscious or deceased. Something that you are still can be. And law enforcement, even if you're not, deceased or unconscious, can forcibly utilize a fingerprint and or your face. So that issue is, in fact, an issue of convenience and, of course, security and privacy. But it's that convenience that utilizing that methodology of access control that, is vulnerable. But, I'm going to keep doing it.
Mm-hmm.
If you are what might be considered, I guess, a high value target, then you might want to consider just using a passcode.
Right. I mean, it's good to know. It's good to be thinking about these. What's the downside, right? And it definitely is a downside. I mean, I've usually used the facial recognition. I mean, actually more so the thumb print, but having the code as a backup is good to have because I've had to use the backup many times.
I think that if you are what would be considered a high value target, like maybe a form of a politician, a significant moneyed individual, celebrity, and so forth, then I think that a password would probably be the most secure form of access control. Mm-hmm. Whereas fingerprinting and biometrics are really just a form of convenience. The technology itself, I would consider secure, but it's the way in which you are coerced to provide that authentication would be the issue.
Robert, what I'm surprised that they haven't developed yet for unlocking your phone voice recognition. That's even more convenient because you don't even have to touch the phone. I mean, you can be using voice recognition at a distance away.
Yeah, and voice recognition is in the process of being decimated with AI and AI of voice cloning. That is a huge concern, which I saw recently. I think it was Citibank was duped in a test run with an AI voice clone.
Yeah, easy. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Scary.
Yeah. So moving on, Bleeping Computer, which is an actual publication, talks about dark web monitoring and what's the value. So the term dark web conjures up images of a shadowy netherworld of cybercrime, espionage, drugs, and guns. In reality, dark websites are simply websites ending in .onion that need to be accessed through a special browser. Cybersecurity firms have long sold dark web monitoring packages, with each package meaning something slightly different. And in many cases, practitioners have struggled to find value in monitoring the dark web, particularly where a vendor sells them on a comprehensive package but doesn't align the value with the organization's security needs. So what this is for most of you, because I get actual emails and text messages from friends, colleagues, clients all the time saying, hey, I just got a dark web notification that, my information, my email address, my social security number, my information is in the dark web. What do I do? Like, I'm freaked out. And that's primarily what dark web monitoring does for companies that offer it. Is it sells fear, uncertainty, and so on, that gets people in a bit of a tizzy. Okay. And that tizzy is what gets them to buy or continue to, pay the monthly monitoring fee for whatever their product or service might be offering. Now, I'm all about knowing that your information is out there. But, okay, so it's out there. Now what? What do you do about it? What are the repercussions of it?
Exactly.
So what are your thoughts?
No, I absolutely agree with you. I'm under, several years ago when I first got into, these topics, I would, try to educate individuals about how careful they have to be and what types of information they share and how to protect their information, which I still do. But now there's been so many breaches that are completely outside of individuals' controls where our PII information has been breached, is out there. So you can practically assume, you should assume, that your information has been breached and it's out there. And now, based on that assumption, how are you going to protect yourself from someone using that information, against you? How, what are some of the red flags? What are some of the precautions that you need to put in place so that bad people don't use that information successfully against you? But just assume that it's out there.
Right. So I've had criminals email me my social security number. Hey, security guy, here's your social. Ha ha, gotcha. Whatever. I care less. I have identity theft protection. I have a credit freeze. I have credit monitoring. I have 2 or 3 layers or 4 or 5 layers of protection, or that alert me to any activity in regards to if any new accounts are being opened up, which is unlikely because I have a credit freeze. So the idea is to first and foremost know that it's likely your identity has already been stolen, is what I tell my clients. Meaning that you may not have necessarily suffered any financial harm, or even, any fraud for that matter. But when I say your identity has been stolen, it's likely in the hands of a criminal as we speak. They may not have just got to you yet, or because you have systems in place to kind of make the data useless to the thief. That's the goal. That's the idea. Making the data useless to the thief means even if they do have your social security number, you have a credit freeze, you have identity theft protection, you have credit monitoring. They really can't do much with it because you have essentially vaccinated your identity with, various systems in place, credit monitoring, identity theft protection, and so forth. Same thing with passwords. Even if they have your passwords, because you should have multiple, as long as you have 2-factor authentication on all those various accounts, they would have to have your mobile phone or whatever key fob in their possession in order to access that account. So making the data useless to the thief in regards to passwords is either changing them up, but more importantly, having 2-factor authentication for all those critical accounts.
Yeah, the point is basically you're making yourself a hard target. You're hardening yourself in such a way that criminals are only going to go so far. When you make it difficult for the criminals, they're going to move on to easier targets because there's plenty of easy targets out there. So if you make yourself a hard target, you really shouldn't have to be so worried about these things.
Yeah, and even if they have your name and your address and your phone number, so does the white pages. So does every government agency out there that you've ever done business with. So does, every company that you've ever provided credit card information to, and so forth. Your personal identifying information, your PII, isn't all sensitive information. It's often public information. And even if it's sensitive, like a credit card number or and with the credit card number, you can't protect a credit card, but you can monitor your charges, get push notifications, and refute those charges as they occur, if they occur, and so on. So it's a matter of making the data useless to the thief, or just simply living with the fact that, my information's out there. Big deal. As long as I'm on top of it, getting these various notifications from these various services that push out that notification to me and so forth, then I can just, be aware of it. But don't get freaked out because your data was found in the dark web. Big deal.
Absolutely. Good points.
Okay, good. All right. So here, Daily Mail talks about Russian cyber attackers hack Texas Panhandle drinking water and flood town in first ever raid by Kremlin-aligned group. So here's what they did. It says Russian hackers claiming to be backed by the Kremlin are believed to have remotely accessed the Texas town's water tower. The suspected hack in the Texas Panhandle town in January will be the first ever disruption of a U.S. drinking water system by Russia after Iran and China carried out similar attacks. The hack led to the tower overflowing with thousands of gallons for almost an hour, leading to a state of emergency to be declared. So what's freaky about this is that it's, possible, right? The fact that there was some type of a control of sorts that was probably using a default username and passcode, potentially a username being admin and the passcode being passcode that wasn't changed up. That's a possibility.
Yes, it is.
Or the system itself was remotely targeted and hacked in such a way where there was a vulnerability in the hardware or the software that allowed backdoor access, or an employee on the inside was socially engineered providing credentials. It's one of those three, potentially 4 or 5 things. You know, it could have been a couple of other things we're not going to get into right now. But it's like the fact that something like that is possible today is a real problem. And there are hundreds, if not thousands, of municipalities across the country that control their own water and sewer, for cleaning it, for distributing it, and so forth. That it's that scattered approach to security, and that they're not making the necessary investments in their information technologies that make them and many of us vulnerable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think this is more widespread than most of us would believe, because I think this has been going on for a number of years right now. The water is part of the critical infrastructure of the United States. And if you think about it, in some ways, it's even more critical than electricity. We could survive a while without electricity. It can be chaos, but you know, if we don't have water, that it sustains life. And we've had a number of adversaries, and we've heard from it's been reported in the news that there's been a number of water treatment facilities that were penetrated by the Iranians, more for probing sakes, and so probing that in the event that there would be a serious conflict between the United States and one of the adversaries, that they could hit us in some of these critical areas, such as the water. And so there's no doubt that there's plans on the shelf, because when you're going to attack a target, you're not going to start then to look at, the vulnerabilities. You're going to study those in advance and put those plans on the shelf. And we know that over these last years, some of these municipalities have been hard hit by ransomware attacks against these facilities. A lot of this hasn't been reported. And so they've been hacked and ransomware attacks. Now, the interesting thing is, though, why did they actually put this in your face? Why would this Russian group all of a sudden put this in your face? Gotcha. We were able to do this. What's the motivation? Is it more like just them having fun, or just like warning us, hey, we have this capability, don't forget? I don't know. Motivation behind disclosing that, right? Or making it so obvious.
I think it's terror. I think they want us to be fearful. I think they want us to be divided. I think they want us to be broken. I don't know that China and Iran and Russia want us to be completely in the dark and disabled and be completely back in the dark ages, because there's so much commerce that goes on between the countries. They have so much to benefit from. But I do think that they want us to be broken in such a way where we don't trust our government, we don't trust our politicians, we don't trust in general, and that we're divided and fractured. And the more fractured we are, I think, and the stronger they are, I think that their own people look to their own governments as, oh, we're so much better off than the Americans. I think that that's a significant primary goal for them.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. But haven't there been other incidences of things going down without really a good explanation about why they happened? I mean, I'm just thinking of it off the top of my head, like major cell networks that all of a sudden go down for an entire day, and there's no really explanation later on what was the cause of that. There was also like air traffic control, right? About a year and a half ago, and all these whole networks going down without any explanation about why it happened. It's kind of
I do think that in some of those circumstances, it's actual, just failures of our own technology that at some point, may or may not have been disclosed, but they just didn't necessarily make the news. But I do think that there are, still many situations where stuff just stops working, stuff breaks. All right. So last but not least, Bleeply Computer again talks about T-Mobile Verizon workers get texts offering $300 for SIM swaps. So check this out, Peter. Criminals are now texting T-Mobile and Verizon employees on their personal and work phones, trying to tempt them with cash to perform SIM swaps. The targeted employees have shared screenshots of messages offering $300 to those willing to aid the senders in their criminal endeavors. According to many reports, this is part of a campaign targeted at current and former mobile carrier workers who have access to the systems required to perform SIM swaps. Myself and a group of former employees all got the same message, all from different numbers and with different verbiage, one of the targeted people said. The attacker's message claimed the source of the contact information is employee directories as first spotted by the mobile report. I got your phone number from the TMO employee directory. I'm looking to pay someone up to $300 per SIM swap done. If you're interested, reply and we can talk, the criminals say in the messages. So at some point, the TMO employee directory was either, I don't know, posted online or stolen by an insider, by an employee, or it was hacked in some way, leaked in some way, a misconfigured server, it was found in some way. But gaining access to insider information, who the employees on the inside are, an Excel file, whatever that might be, I think would be, a significant benefit to the bad guy, knowing who the players are on the insides and making those offers for $300 for a SIM swap. That employee who can, I guess, facilitate 10 SIM swaps a week, that's $3,000. That's, lots of money, 12 grand or so over the course of a month. The employee who's making $18 an hour, why wouldn't he?
Are those, how easy is it to detect that, or to, now knowing that there is this problem or potential problem, if they were to take a look at it, AT&T or Verizon were to look at this, how easy is it really, really difficult or impossible to detect who might have done this?
So I've actually been involved in a legal case with two of the telcos, actually, where I was an expert witness and discussed how this happens and how people are victimized. And it is often somebody on the inside at either one of the big companies themselves, the T-Mobiles, AT&Ts, and Verizons of the world, but more than likely, it's actually one of the resellers. It's somebody on the inside as a reseller who's approached to make these SIMs swaps, and that person could be offered $300 to $1,000 or more. And in one of the cases that I was on, they ended up transferring out over $20,000 worth of crypto out of a Coinbase account, which is pretty significant, And as those with crypto accounts are being targeted, it's usually, in this case, it was a result of their email initially being compromised. And we saw when an email was compromised, it's often because they're using the same passcode across multiple accounts or because they were phished. And once the bad guy was inside their email and saw that they have a Coinbase account, then from that point on, they begin to determine what's necessary to get inside their actual Coinbase account. And when they realize, okay, well, they have a username, they have a passcode, they have two-factor authentication. Now we have to swap out their SIM to be able to get control over their mobile phone, so we can get that second factor text to us, so we can then log into their Coinbase account, and then from there, make the swap. So there's a number of things that have to happen in order to get paid, but accessing $20,000 of crypto based on a SIM swap that's the key to get in. And it's the employee on the inside of the organization. It's the reseller who might even own the company. It could be an employee inside the company that facilitates that SIM swap that ultimately overrides two-factor authentication. That becomes the point of contention. That becomes, the key to the kingdom, essentially. And yeah, I mean, that's those on the inside that are made these offers. The incentives are just so great for them to say no. Yeah, that's how that works. Yeah. So Peter, what do you got going on? What's going on? Where can people find you?
Well, a lot of things are starting up here now, especially during May. A lot of travel. Fortunately, good things as far as conferences and educational events where I'll be presenting. And hopefully I'm not going to catch the COVID. Hopefully be safe traveling. But we're all heading like more toward October when it's Cybersecurity Awareness Month. So if your companies are looking for engaging in speakers like myself or Robert, please keep us in mind.
Your website?
Yes, counterintelligence-institute.com. I'm also on LinkedIn, and my book.
And your books.
My books, yeah, Confessions of a CIA Spy in English, Spanish, and Portuguese, and the follow-on book, Why Are You Messing With Me? It's in English, and great book if you're looking for some materials to give to your loved ones, your parents and your grandparents.
And y'all can see me at protectnowllc.com, also on LinkedIn. We're, of course, providing ongoing cybersecurity awareness, cyber social identity and personal protection training. And Peter, last words.
Everybody stay safe out there. Take care of each other. And don't forget that COVID is still lurking.
And as my dad says, be good, behave, and be careful. Talk to you guys later.